You all asked, and you all picked a really good game for the fan game of the week, and it's the Southwest Classic in Dallas, Texas. Hello, everybody. You're listening to the College Sports Superfan, and today we've got another great SEC matchup between Arkansas and number 21 Texas A&M. This is a fantastic rivalry that, of course, dates way before these two teams were in the SEC, back when they were both in the Southwest Conference and had a fierce rivalry over there. And in general, Arkansas actually dominated that rivalry back then. Now, in more recent times, being in the SEC, it's been Texas A&M that's really dominated this one. So let's just get right into it, and we'll start with Arkansas. The Razorbacks have had a crazy season so far, starting off with a 70 to nothing dominant win over a terrible FCS team, then having a crazy up and down performance against Oklahoma State that they really probably should have won in hindsight, and just ended up blowing it with terrible penalties and turnovers and allowed the Cowboys to come back, and they lost that game, one of the craziest games of the season, in double overtime. So they're 3-1 though still. Texas A&M, similar scenario. They're 3-1 after losing a tough, hard-fought game to Notre Dame, but they bounced back strong. They dominated Florida, and they're right back in the top 25. Well, let's talk about Arkansas first. Quarterback Kalen Green, who comes in from Boise State, was really exciting, really fun to watch with the Broncos. And so far, he has been fun to watch with Arkansas, although he's been very erratic. 53% completion percentage, 957 yards, which is not too bad at all, 4 touchdown passes, and 4 interceptions. And then on the ground, he's got 325 yards, which is 5.5 per carry, and 4 rushing touchdowns. He does have 2 fumbles, but they didn't lose those fumbles, so those are not turnovers. So in total, he does have 8 scores and 4 turnovers, which is not the worst thing in the world, and his numbers total are not too bad at this point in the season, but that accuracy has really just been all over the place. However, senior running back Jaquindon Jackson has quietly been a superstar running back for Arkansas. No more Rocket Sanders, but it doesn't matter, as Jaquindon Jackson has 472 yards, 6.8 yards per carry, with 8 touchdowns, and he only has 1 fumble on the season. So he has been an absolute beast. This offensive line, coached by head coach Sam Pittman and his crew, which Sam Pittman, a former offensive lineman himself, this is his specialty, and it's looked really good once again this season. They've got a couple of solid receivers as well. Andrew Armstrong, the veteran of this group, 348 yards. Also, a local kid named Isaiah Tategna. He's a sophomore. He's from Fayetteville, Arkansas. 213 yards and a touchdown. He also has a fumble. Overall, the receiving core has not looked crazy good, but that's also because of Green's wild inaccuracy. But they've been really spreading the ball around quite a bit. The secondary also has been very solid. They have been giving up a good bit of passing yards, but not a crazy number of passing yards that we've seen from terrible Arkansas secondaries in the past. I think they've really done a good job fixing it up a good bit. They've got TJ Metcalf, who has 25 tackles and 3 interceptions. So he has been a superstar over there. And then Danico Slaughter, who they took from Tennessee, has 22 tackles, a sack, and an interception. So he's been brilliant in the secondary as well. And then at linebacker, they have Xavier Sorey Jr., who has 22 tackles, and Steven Dix Jr., who has 16 tackles and a forced fumble, or a fumble recovery, excuse me. So those two guys have been really good. The defensive line, there wasn't really any super impressive standouts, so that does seem to be a point of weakness for Arkansas, so that they can't get a whole lot of pressure on opposing quarterbacks, which is allowing them to basically do whatever they want. We saw what happened against Oklahoma State when Alan Bowman started to get hot and they couldn't get in the backfield to stop him. at all, and he just went off with that group of receivers. So they got to get better at getting pressure to the quarterbacks. But overall, their defensive players have been making the tackles on the backfield when they've had to. Now for the Aggies. Now their situation is a bit complicated at quarterback. Connor Weigman started the year at quarterback. Again, he was a former 5-star recruit, lots and lots of talent. He's now in his junior year, but really his season has not been all that great. And in their last game against Bowling Green State, the true freshman Marcel Reed, or I guess he's the redshirt freshman, Marcel Reed started against Bowling Green State, and he actually looked pretty good. So to compare the two quarterbacks, because we're unclear of which one is going to start on Saturday, the initial depth chart had Weigman as the starter, but again, he's got an injury and he hasn't played all that great. So I'm actually thinking Marcel Reed is going to end up being the starter. Because listen to this. Connor Weigman has only 225 yards, a 52% completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. So, not great at all. Now, again, he played against Notre Dame, who has a very legit defense, especially in the secondary. So, that's important to keep in mind. But still, not great numbers at all. Marcel Reed has 422 yards, a 56% completion percentage, and 4 passing touchdowns, plus 217 yards and a rushing touchdown, and he has no turnovers at all. So to me, even though Reed, played slightly worse competition, just looked so much better. And Bowling Green State, in my opinion, is not that bad of a team. I think they are going to be competing for a MAC championship this year and could potentially win it because of their really good offense and solid defense. So to me, Marcel Reed should be the starter on Saturday. But again, we don't know. And the initial depth chart had Weigman as the starter, and he is a couple years older than Reed. He is the veteran. So we'll just have to see. Le'Veon Moss has been the main running back. He's got 354 yards, 5.6 yards per carry, with 3 touchdowns and 1 fumble. So he's been okay. And at wide receiver, there hasn't really been a main standout. Technically, Cypress Allen leads the group with 181 yards and a touchdown. But quarterback play, as I just mentioned, hasn't been super stellar, and they've been really spreading the ball around. So there really hasn't been much room for a receiver to really blow up in this offense. On defense, it has looked impressive at all levels. Nick Scorton and Cassius Howell each have 10 tackles on the defensive line. Of course, Scorton, a super highly touted prospect. He gets double teamed quite a bit, and yet he's still been getting back there relatively consistently. Corian York at linebacker has 23 tackles. He's been fantastic. Marcus Ratcliffe in the secondary has 11 tackles and 3 interceptions, and Will Lee III has 18 tackles and an interception. So basically, at all levels, Texas A&M has at least one superstar at each part of the defense, which is very good for them. All right, let's take a look at the history here. Arkansas leads the all-time series 42-35 with 3 ties. These two teams have been playing each other since 1903. So again, I said this is a rivalry that goes back a good bit. However, the Aggies have dominated since they've been in the SEC. They have won all but one meeting since these two teams have been playing every single year since 2012, meaning that Texas A&M has won 11 out of the 12 SEC matchups. Pure dominance on their part, so that's what makes it tricky to pick Arkansas. But here's my prediction. Texas A&M is favored by 5.5 points, so not favored by a whole lot. But you know what? I've just got this weird feeling that I'm going to pick Arkansas to win this game. I've got the Hogs winning by 3. This is kind of one of my more wild picks. I feel like I got to make at least one of these every week, and why not make it during the fan game of the week? The thing is, Arkansas's secondary, I think, is very underrated. Their numbers are really solid. They just got to get more pressure to the quarterback. And the offense for Arkansas is very explosive. The ground game with Jaquindon Jackson, who I think is the main star player, him and the Arkansas offensive line together, Those are the main keys to the game. I think if the Hogs can control the line of scrimmage, run the ball effectively, and then if Texas A&M starts Connor Weigman, who I really have not been impressed with, that's what they've got on the initial depth chart. If they start Weigman, I really think they're going to lose. Now, if they were starting Marcel Reed, I may have a different opinion about this, and they may end up throwing him in there and they'll win, and I'll, be wrong on this. But I'm worried they're going to start Weigman. I don't think he's been all that great. Arkansas secondary has been really good with those guys that I mentioned earlier, and they've been running the ball effectively. I think they'll control the clock, control the line of scrimmage. As long as they don't make any serious mistakes, I think Arkansas should win this game and get a critical win for Sam Pittman to try to keep his job at Arkansas. I could end up regretting this one, but I got the Hogs winning by 3. All right, thank you guys so much for watching the College Sports Superfan. That was the fan game of the week. Great choice on this one because this was a tough one for me to pick. I was going back and forth between A&M and Arkansas constantly, even right before making this video. So thank you guys so much for that, and stay tuned for more content here on the College Sports Superfan.